Someone at the center of that struggle, New York Democrat, chair of the House Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, Representative Steve Israel. Congressman, thank you for joining us. What do you take from the president's message? Are you ready to give the new president, the 45th president, Donald Trump, a chance?
Well, look, there are some things that we should work with him on if it makes sense for the country. I'll give you an example. Infrastructure. One of the reasons that the middle class feels alienated, feels that their paycheck growth is anemic, is that we're not building enough in this country. And so I hope that President Trump and Democrats and Republicans can rally around a sensible infrastructure bill. But if the president-elect continues to appoint people like Bannon to the White House, these haters, we're going to fight him every step of the way. That's our obligation, and we're going to fulfill that obligation.
And the pushback is, well, every political administration has people from different stripes in it. This is no different. The left just doesn't like Bannon because he represents the right. Just like you have alt-right, you have alt-left. No big deal. What do you see here as such a big deal?
Chris, this is not a stripe, this is a fringe. Mr. Bannon has presided over a platform, a media platform, that uses words like renegade Jew, that vilifies women. This is not just somebody who has a diversity of opinion. This is somebody whose opinions are virulent. And we're going to oppose those opinions and continue to stand up to them.
All right, and then you have the problems in-house. So you have what you deal with Trump. We talked about that. Now we have to do with what you do with your own party. Listen to what Bernie Sanders said.
There needs to be a profound change in the way the Democratic Party does business. It is not good enough to have a liberal elite. I come from the white working class, and I am deeply humiliated that the Democratic Party cannot talk to the people from where I came from.
Are you deeply humiliated? Are you going to have your party get back to its roots?
Well, here's what we have to do. We need a middle-class mind meld as Democrats. We have to understand why it is that the party of the middle class lost so many middle-class voters, and that means several things. Number one, we've got to listen to middle-class and working-class voters who are buffeted by a unique convergence of economic and social pressures. Number two, we've got to tap into those anxieties constructively, or else Republicans are going to do it destructively. And number three, we've got to do some research. We've got to do some data. But, you know, we've always kind of looked at polls. My favorite saying in the military is take your eyes off the radar and look out the window. We've got to look out the window. We've got to feel those pressures and come up with a blueprint for rebuilding the middle class in this country and the working class. And if we do that, we're going to have a very good cycle in 2018. The President's Party loses seats in the next general election. I think we're positioned strongly, but we've got to tap into those anxieties and understand them and give voice to them.
Change comes from the top. Who do you think should be the top of your party?
More important than who is at the top of the party, who leads the party, is where we're going. And quite bluntly, I think we need to have a family conversation. I think we need to sit around the table and not dwell on who's sitting at the head of the table, but have a conversation on what are we going to do to tap into those middle class and working class anxieties. What is our blueprint for middle class growth in this country?
I heard you, Congressman, and you know, with all due respect, though, the message emanates from that figure at the head, especially in your party. And that's why it's a fundamental question. Are you just not comfortable giving an answer to it? Do you not know yet?
Well, first of all, every day somebody else jumps into this race. Just today, Jamie Harrison from South Carolina announced that he's running. And so I think we have an obligation to let everybody who wants to run express their priorities and their values. But I'm not hung up on who has the title of chairman of the DNC. I'm hung up on why did we lose middle-class voters and working-class voters. That should be our priority. And so we should take a pause, take a deep breath, do some deep thinking, figure out where this party is going, how to tap into those anxieties.
Well,
one more thing, Chris.
Go ahead, please.
We're so hung up on our failures. Well, why don't we look at the successes? Let's take a look at Congressman Rick Nolan in a district in Minnesota where Trump won by double digits, but Democrat Rick Nolan won. Let's take a look at Governor Bullock in Montana, where Trump did very, very well, but a Democratic governor did well. Let's not just dwell on where we fell short, but what kinds of Democrats are doing well, and how do we replicate that success?
Right, but, you know, Congressman, you got to look at what just happened. Donald Trump beat your candidate by tapping into middle-class angst, working-class angst. You used to own that. I was raised by a guy who couldn't talk about that enough. And the feeling from people like him, may he rest in peace, and Bernie Sanders, who's in there now, is that you guys drifted too far to the outside and took on too many of the cultural battles and forgot about the economic struggles of the people in the heart of this country. Do you agree with that?
Look, for me, it's the middle-class economy, number one, middle-class economy, number two, middle-class economy, number three.
But that's not where your party was. Your party fought the culture wars more than it fought the economic wars.
And we need to, look, if you are an African-American whose paycheck growth is anemic in Detroit, and you're a white guy in Levittown whose paycheck growth is anemic as well, the issue isn't what color you are, what background you're from. The issue is you have anemic paycheck growth. And this party has always prospered by tapping into that, but with constructive solutions to that paycheck growth. We've got to return to that. We've got to grow the middle class. When we tap into the middle class, when the middle class thinks we care about them and that we have solutions for them, we win elections, which is why I think we need that middle class mind meld.
You got to figure out how you got there to figure out where you go from there. It'll be interesting to see what revelations you all come up with. Congressman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.